So I had two interesting conversations over the past 2 days. I have a new virtual assistant and she'd been watching some of my videos and she said, oh, they're not like how people normally do videos, where it's very, very structured. And she was sort of worried about that. It's quite interesting. And then I had another conversation with one of my friends who this morning walking up the hill in a place called Clifton from the River Thames, and we were sliding up the mud, and he reminded me that about a year ago he'd had to give a presentation at his corporation, and we'd spent some time and planned it so it would be unusual and it would really work, and he was just reminding me how well it had gone. So those are two fascinating conversations. When people have to speak in public, there are really things which everyone knows. There's something about get the content right. There's something about make sure your style is right. There's something about the outcome and the audience. And so everybody knows that you're supposed to sort of make your points and then illustrate them with examples. Everyone knows that you should tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you've told them. Everyone knows you should have visual aids and you shouldn't read your visual aids. So everybody knows that. And what some people know is that actually, if you make it into more of a story, it's much more engaging. So you'll see, for example, if you listen to many TED Talks or those type of shortened talks, which are about 18 minutes long, they're always a story with a beginning, middle, and an end. And also, they know that if they can keep it short, they'll keep your attention. And if the images are very emotional and the quotes are fantastic, everything's going to work. But all of that's probably wrong, because the pace of change in the world means that you'll find that at this moment there are sort of two different ends of the spectrum. One is some people just sit and listen to a 4-hour podcast, listen to the whole thing, and others want little sound bites. And so there's something strange going on in people's willingness to listen and understand. It's not just about keeping everything short. It's not just about the stories. It's also about the journey you take and the way the answers and questions weave around themselves. And so what I try to do is I try to make sure that I don't have to do the tell them what you're going to tell them what you've told them by asking some questions. So that transfers some of the ownership. I also make absolutely certain that instead of illustrating my points with examples, I illustrate my examples with my points, which is what I've just done, which I've explained to you about my virtual assistant, and now I've gone on a ramble, and I'm actually structuring and try and explain why my virtual assistant thought I should be making those points. In addition to that, also, you've got to make the presentation a little bit like an adventure, not like a Hollywood movie where you know the end and the start, boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy finds girl. No, it has to be an adventure. You didn't know what was going to happen in this talk, did you? And now I'm going to give you some ideas about how you actually put that together. So the first thing you do is you work out the journey you want to take them on. You work out where the surprises are going to be. You work out what twists and turns and how you're going to bring often 2 or 3 different ideas together so they get a big aha. So if you've thought that bit through, that's really useful. If you're trying to illustrate what you're doing, the points and so on, and you've got images, try to stick with images. If you have words, there's a rule. It's called the fresh fish rule. You're walking past a shop and outside the zone of those 10 signs, it says fresh fish sold here. Which of those words is not needed? Well, fresh. Nobody sells rotten fish. Sold here? Here is useless because the tent's outside the shop. Sold. It's a shop. Okay, so now we're down to fish. But you can smell it. So the fewer words, the better. And that's really the rule. And then you don't get caught up in them. Also, it means you can weave and respond to the audience. The other thing which I'll tell you to do, which is really important, is they'll tell you, speak to your audience. Never speak to your audience. Speak to that person there, then that person there, then that person. And speak to all the individuals and make up the audience. You can't speak to an audience. It's not possible. I hope you enjoyed that. And I hope I'll be able to help you more with trying to make sure your events work and your speakers are really sharp and bring something magical.